What if a world-uniting alien invasion was never meant to come from outer space? What if the greatest threat to humanity was intentionally manufactured? From Watchmen's fictional alien hoax to Ronald Reagan's real speeches about a common extraterrestrial enemy, the idea of staging an alien threat has quietly threaded itself through politics, media, and conspiracy culture for decades. William Cooper warned about it. Serge Monast called it Project Bluebeam. Werner Von Braun, according to insiders, claimed the final global enemy would be aliens, real or not. Holograms, psy-ops, mass manipulation, UFO sightings in Utah and Jerusalem. Some say it's preparation, others say it's paranoia. But one question remains. If a global extraterrestrial event happened tomorrow, would we even know whether it was real? In the original Watchmen comic, set in an alternate reality 1985, one of the heroes commits what can be considered a villainous act for the good of all mankind. He contrives an alien invasion so that the United States, the Soviet Union, and the rest of the world will join together in peace and harmony to protect themselves against the outside alien threat. If the story rings familiar to some of you, it is because it is based on speeches given by Ronald Reagan in the real world, in which he said an alien threat would be the solution to uniting a hostile world. Numerous conspiracy theorists, most notably former naval officer William Cooper, the author of the famed underground book Behold a Pale Horse, speculated that Reagan's speech was an expositional public debriefing to prepare the public to accept a global government as a necessary response to an alien invasion scenario. Cooper suggested that the US government had been working on a fake alien invasion since the 1930s, and that even Orson Welles' War of the Worlds broadcast was an experiment to see how the populace would react to such an event. Cooper hosted a radio talk show on which he predicted the gradual and pre-planned worldwide economic collapse. Most of his information has proven to be accurate. He blew the lid off the Oklahoma City Federal Building bombing and the raids on Waco. He was lambasted by both Bill Clinton and Rush Limbaugh as the most dangerous talk show host in America. Much of the content of the X-Files movie, Fight the Future, was inspired by his books. Before there was David Icke, there was Bill Cooper. Long before Alex Jones, there was Bill Cooper. The late Mr. Cooper is the subject of an FBI investigation into the possibility that he was the notorious hijacker D.B. Cooper. William Cooper was eventually gunned down by police officers in front of his Arizona home. What did Cooper know? What were they trying to silence? Even at his most paranoid, he offered what was probably as close to 100% uncompromised, unadulterated human truth as one could possibly find. All of his associates and friends knew that Cooper was legitimate. The information from his book, Behold a Pale Horse, is, to this day, being revealed as true. A staged alien invasion has not yet taken place, or so we might think. Many have speculated that there have been numerous test runs of a massive psy-op called Project Bluebeam. This theory was made popular by Serge, who believed that Bluebeam was a project that was being implemented by NASA to create a New Age Antichrist. It is also believed that most of Monast's claims come from fictional predictive programming in television shows like Star Trek, 2001, A Space Odyssey, and Star Wars. Project Bluebeam is allegedly being carried out in several stages, while many focus on the final stage, which is the creation of an anomalous event, such as the holographic image of an alien ship that would seem like some sort of messianic, divine, or extraterrestrial arrival. There are a number of events that are supposed to happen prior to the final staging. The first stage, according to Monast, would be the artificial creation of earthquakes. These earthquakes would unearth new and mysterious artifacts that would call all major religious beliefs into question. The second stage would be a spectacular show in outer space, the fake creation of signs and wonders, which would be significant only to religious and New Age cultists. Holographic images of specific versions of the deity or deities would appear in areas in which they were predominant. For instance, Israel would see the Jewish Messiah. In Muslim countries, the image of Allah would be projected into heaven. In Christian countries, it would be Jesus. Then all of the deities would merge together to be shown as one God. This, according to Monast, would be the electronic Antichrist. In the third stage, this God would speak to people using Elf. Then, in the chaotic fourth stage, Monast believed that Christians would think the rapture is happening. Ode to Joy would be played by the United Nations and heard by everyone telepathically, and it would be universally and mistakenly believed that the aliens had arrived. The truth about Bluebeam is that these theories of the faking of UFO events and a false second coming were written by a Christian fundamentalist. Now, Bluebeam is considered a catch-all for all things alien. It has been associated with the Harpy Project, chemtrails, and crop circles. It is the great hoaxing of the world that radical conspiracy theorists believe must be stopped. Ostensibly, we have been desensitized to alien events that rival the writings of Arthur C. Clarke, with stories about large ships parked worldwide over major cities. We are conditioning Christian fundamentalists with pop rapture eschatology, movies and TV shows that tell us that the world is preparing for some major event. And we all know that it has to be a meeting with God or the extraterrestrials. Believers in Bluebeam will likewise know that this is all faked, which sits better with people who want to declare limits on possibilities. Dr. Carol Rosin appeared on my radio show Ground Zero in 2001. Rosin, the first female corporate manager of Fairchild Industries, was spokesperson for Werner Von Braun in the last years of his life. She founded the Institute for Security and Cooperation in Outer Space in Washington, D.C., and has testified before Congress on many occasions about space-based weapons. What she had to say to Ground Zero listeners concurs with what William Cooper, and to some extent Monast, had to say about faking a heavenly event. Rosin claims that just before Von Braun died, he told her that the government would name several threats to the world that would create an urgency to organize a new government and build space weapons. Von Braun was well aware of certain intelligence because he was a part of the Nazi U.S. protection plan called Operation Paperclip, in which Nazi scientists and intelligence officers helped to organize the space programs and the CIA. He claimed that the Russians would be the first enemy of concern, then Muslim terrorists, and finally an alien threat. However, according to Rosin, Von Braun stated that the extraterrestrial threat would first concern near-Earth objects, such as asteroids and meteors. Then the sun would be presented as the threat. Finally, we would be told to fear living extraterrestrials that would want to come down and kill us. Von Braun allegedly said that the alien threat would be a lie, a hoax concocted to bring about a new world order, a space-based weapons platform, and a worldwide unified religious movement. Given the history of UFOs and their various appearances throughout history, there is some merit in speculating that the right UFO appearance could spark a new and robust religious movement. In the year 593 BC, during the early days of the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem, a man named Ezekiel witnessed a marvel in the heavens. A wheel within a wheel spun towards him, and, after speaking with the strange-looking occupants of this flying wheel, he was given instructions on how to use the heavenly event for leverage against idol worshippers. Saul of Tarsus was a Roman who, after being blinded by a large glowing object in the sky, changed his name to Paul and became Christianity's Roman evangelist. The churches started by Paul grew and developed into mainstream Christianity by the end of the 3rd century. Many of them changed a lot of doctrine in order to create a new religious movement. He had a new way to see Jesus. It united a great many people, and its effects have lasted over 1,000 years. Joseph Smith, at age 14, claimed to have been visited by beings on numerous occasions. Smith told stories of encounters with angels and even with God and Jesus. His first vision was in a grove of trees where a bright line beamed down from the sky and told him to organize a new religion. Joseph Smith's encounters sound like typical alien abduction experiences one hears about today. One angelic entity that visited Smith told him to dig up golden plates and translate them from Egyptian hieroglyphs. This translation eventually became the Book of Mormon, the foundation of the Mormon Church's beliefs. According to some accounts, the entity appeared to associates of Smith as a tall, walking white salamander, which then took on human form. This was detailed in what is known as the Salamander Letter, which the LDS Church calls a forgery. There are approximately 12,168,606 Mormons in the world, all of them believers in a book that was allegedly translated from an Egyptian book of undecipherable scratches, handed to a young man by an alleged shape-shifting angel that came down from the sky in a beam of light. Mormonism has been around 180 years and continues to grow as a restoration denomination and a dispensationalist religion. Many believe that Joseph Smith faked it all. Anti-Mormon hobbyists claim that it was easy nearly 200 years ago to manipulate people into believing that beings can be called down from heaven that can give one wisdom. This is still believed by millions because of an organized effort to continue the story. Scientology is another religious philosophy that is rooted in the idea of alien beings. According to conspiracy theorists, this religion is already using the Hollywood community to prime us for a fake alien arrival. In 2008, the Vatican's chief astronomer opened up the possibility that extraterrestrials and God exist, which made it no longer anathema to believe that aliens exist in the cosmos. Monast had said that events such as these in the modern world would destroy religion. However, it seems that most major UFO appearances have fostered greater beliefs in a higher power. Ronald Reagan mentioned many times that the differences of the world would disappear if we were to realize that an alien threat from outside our world was ready to attack us. What if an alien event, or a divine religious event, actually did take place? The interpretations would differ, and each religion would have to explain the anomaly and try to interpret it using its own scripture. Each religion would have to find commonality on the issue of divine intervention or face a schism. When one thinks about a real alien or divine event, the idea is very uncomfortable. Ronald Reagan's idea of a united front against an alien threat was written off as the ramblings of a man losing his mental faculties. However, it must be considered that the same alien conversation was also brought up to Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev. Gorbachev himself confirmed, during an important speech given to the Central Committee of the USSR's Communist Party in Geneva on February 17, 1987, in the Grand Kremlin Palace in Moscow, that he and Reagan had a conversation in Geneva about aliens. Gorbachev told the press, "At our meeting in Geneva, the US president said that if the Earth faced an invasion by extraterrestrials, the United States and the Soviet Union would join forces to repel such an invasion." I shall not dispute the hypothesis, though I think it's early yet to worry about such an intrusion. It is interesting to point out that Gorbachev never spoke of how unusual the conversation was. He only commented that it might be too early to talk about such an event as an alien invasion. Did this indicate that perhaps there is a date when it would be more appropriate to discuss these things? Have the governments of the world set a date on which to announce to the world that life is out there in space? Or have they been planning on a date when they would stage an alien invasion? It was first proposed that a mass UFO sighting in Arizona was part of Project Bluebeam. On March 13, 1997, a mile-long triangular-shaped UFO was seen over Phoenix, Arizona. The massive airship had an array of lights in the back and a huge light in the front. Many people believed that the lights seen over Phoenix were part of a huge psy-op. The image of a large UFO was seen by the entire city and garnered all types of press. While the reaction from the public was typical for a UFO sighting, there were other reactions that were reported and then forgotten. The Heaven's Gate cult committed mass suicide just days after the Arizona sighting. Marshall Applewhite received a sign that it was time for him and 38 of his followers to shed their human containers and join the evolutionary level above human in a spaceship hiding behind the comet Hale-Bopp. The acronym for evolutionary level above human is ELA, the name for God, and when inverted, spells Hale. Was this part of a psy-op to trigger a response? Coincidentally, 3 members of the Heaven's Gate away team worked for Advanced Development Group, Inc., ADG, a company that developed computer-based instruction for the U.S. Army. ADG later became Mantech Advanced Development Group, These organizations have connections to the 1st Earth Battalion, a psy-op group formed within the US military to allegedly handle extraterrestrial affairs such as abductions or contact through telepathy or remote viewing, and to hold simulated extraterrestrial drills using holographic technology. 1st Earth Battalion eventually became the Jedi Project. All of these secretive psy-op groups are, or were, well skilled in spreading information and disinformation about the occult, the Heaven's Gate cult, the attacks of 9/11, remote viewing, and UFOs. Lee Johnson was a member of a Utah rock group called Dharma Combat. He was a Heaven's Gate Away team member and committed suicide with the cult members. After his death, the surviving members of the band released an EP that featured a song called Meslim, written by Johnson. The song featured some odd lyrics about a possible attempt by the US government to stage an alien threat. What did he know, and why did he and the 38 followers of Heaven's Gate believe that there was an alien spaceship following the Hale-Bopp comet? Was all of this a test run for a mass exercise? Jacques Vallée wrote a book called Messengers of Deception, where he revealed that groups like Heaven's Gate and the Raelians and events like the alien autopsy seem to be linked to military intelligence. Allegedly, branches of the military are engaging in psychological warfare involving false flag exercises. These include simulated extraterrestrial attacks. The frightening part is that the military psyops groups are conducting these alien-based psychological experiments to test the collective acceptance of a real alien landing. They are allegedly faking occasional UFO reports and YouTube videos to gauge public reaction. They are also allegedly taking real events shown on YouTube and creating a sense of confusion by creating very sophisticated fakes that appear to be eyewitness documentation. These fakes are used to discredit any and all anomalous events as hoaxes. The mainstream media then takes the story and jokingly ridicules those who believe that the event was out of the ordinary. This has been lost on many armchair skeptics who believe that they know CGI when they see it. Of course there is CGI. Your taxes paid for the intelligence blackouts and disinformation. The psyop begins and soon everything is a hoax and evidence is overlooked in the race to debunk and not to decipher. We begin to see a public consensus that has a whiff or a whim claim that any UFO activity is always caused by Project Bluebeam or HARP. We begin to see every UFO video held to scrutiny because it is assumed by skeptics that people who see lights in the sky are prone to delusions of alien contact. It is also assumed that if the skeptics themselves can fake the evidence, it is almost certainly a hoax created by those who claim to have authentic footage or documentation. We are now witnessing the hijacking of information by maggot-like thought police. This type of hijacking of information has created a form of neo-skepticism, in which there is a group of true skeptics who have no knowledge of an external world or of infinite possibilities. Their whole lives are mired in doubt and contempt for anyone with a belief in something that is beyond the norm. They are adamant in suppressing new ideas and dismissing anything that does not fit into the consensus orthodoxy. Real skepticism is based in asking questions and raising real doubts. The neo-skeptics will not entertain infinite possibilities. They set out to debunk, destroy, ridicule, and attack anything that is abnormal or even paranormal. They make declarative statements about motive behind any and all paranormal affairs. They assume that people who have these experiences are out to create attention for themselves and profit from accounts of their experiences. Questioning a neo-skeptic will provoke attack, and your intelligence will be called into question. The people who make it their business to serve as critical parents, such as Phil Platt, James Randi, and Michael Shermer, do nothing to cast doubt upon the consensus reality or to challenge authority. Do these thought police ponder any mystery? Do they challenge it? Or are they just waiting to attack it and dismiss it as folly? They claim to employ reason, to come to sobering conclusion, and yet they are judgmental and delight in attacking beliefs that challenge their so-called authority. I was featured on Penn and Teller's show, where I was told that they were skeptics. I had respect for true skepticism. Yet, for a solid hour, I was the subject of solid ridicule and hostile language about positions that I have considered and presented as theory. Neo-skeptics claim to be rational until one makes a claim or demonstrates a concept that they can rip apart ferociously. They will accuse you of photoshopping that ghost or using CGI for that UFO sighting. Their tactics are suppressive. They have set back any legitimate effort to find out the truth and establish factual evidence or conclusions about these claims. I conclude that any evidence that runs counter to their beliefs, no matter how convincing, will be dismissed and destroyed by the neo-skeptics in charge of making sure we don't consider possibilities outside the established version of reality. I wish to demonstrate how neo-skeptics hijacked a paranormal UFO type of event, and in so doing have shut down the opportunity for reasonable analysis on a possible UFO flap that may or may not have paranormal possibilities. On the 26th and 27th of January, respectively, there were at least 2 UFO stories buzzing around the internet. The first story began with speculation that the Army facility at Dugway Proving Grounds in Utah was on lockdown for an unknown reason. Coincidentally, during the lockdown, there were 4 videos posted to YouTube that showed a UFO in the night sky over the region. These videos captured red lights hovering above, releasing what appeared to be white balls of light. The white lights were described as quite luminous and descending quickly. 2 witnesses interviewed on a local television station said that they were not believers in extraterrestrials, but were still in awe of the event and wanted some answers. The other videos of the event were taken by anonymous observers who did not come forward to admit they had shot the videos. Almost simultaneously, a UFO event similar to the one in Utah was recorded by 2 men in Israel. According to reports, the witnesses were standing on the Armon Hanatziv Promenade, which is south of the old city of Jerusalem. The witnesses had been facing north towards the Kidron Valley some 20 minutes when they saw a ball of light appear in the restricted air zone over the dome of the rock. The light seemed to be suspended below a row of red lights that appeared to be in formation. The ball of light then dropped to earth just above the Temple Mount and hovered. It began creeping slowly toward the Garden of Gethsemane. There was a remarkable flash of light, immediately after which the UFO zoomed into the sky towards the red lights and disappeared. Both videos appeared to be shot with cell phones and were placed on YouTube. It did not take long for the neo-skeptics' focus upon debunking the videos in the name of science and critical thinking by creating at least one fake video to supposedly prove flaws in perspective and parallax. There was a demonstration of flutter movement that was determined to be hoaxed. Zooming characteristics that they claimed proved that there was fakery involved, and fake video produced by the skeptics themselves that was to stand as proof that the witnesses' videos were falsified. One of the most annoying and telling aspects of the whole debunking frenzy is that the Utah footage was ignored. This footage that was captured there should be examined and considered in the sequence of events. There was no discussion about how both the incidents in Utah and Israel were virtually identical and that both incidents occurred over world religious centers. The areas have historic religious significance for the main monotheistic faiths: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or Mormons, are headquartered in Salt Lake City, and they also have temples in Provo and American Fork. If there were a conspiracy to produce false evidence, then it would have to be a mass conspiracy between those unknown witnesses who recorded the incident in Utah and the 6 Israelis that were not afraid to show their faces recording the incident in 2 separate geographic locations. None of the skeptics have included the Utah footage, perhaps because that would put a wrench in the process, destroying their hastily assembled theories and making it necessary for them to do some real research, cross-verification, and explanation. It would be refreshing to see explanations that don't suggest a dismissive and ill-informed agenda. True skepticism is about critical thinking, not agendas and speculations. It was like watching a poetic train wreck to see the rush to prove that there was some sort of hoax taking place, even though the videos were allegedly produced by different sources in 2 different areas of Israel. There were also incredibly weak explanations as to why these videos were hoaxes. One was that the so-called orb UFO had to have been 15 feet wide, which, according to Benjamin Radford, would render it impossible for extraterrestrials to occupy it, or, in his words, that it was awfully small for a spacecraft that presumably made it across the universe for its camera cameo. Radford also goes on to say that the footage must be a hoax because there were no police investigations into the sightings in Israel. I am unaware at this time of police investigations of the incident in Utah, but both the Utah incident and Israeli incidents were on the local news. Radford continues to go on about the fake video produced by the skeptics, saying it is definitely faked. I agree with him about this, but it seems akin to saying that the man playing Santa Claus at Macy's is not the real Santa, while at the same time saying that there is no real Santa. This attempt to pass off faulty logic is quite insulting to any intellectual debate. Radford also states, "If you were one of the first people in the world to capture some of the most amazing video footage of a UFO taken in the past decade, why would you post it anonymously on YouTube instead of either submitting it to professional analysis or making money by selling it to CNN or MSNBC? It is because YouTube is immediate. People who capture UFOs on video want to avoid being on mainstream TV because they have to deal with inane statements like those, and authorities like James Randi, Phil Plait, James Oberg, and Michael Shermer, who love to pin down people who really don't know what they have seen and want answers. It is because a lot of people are curious and don't want to be associated with UFOs or conspiracies or even neo-skeptics. It is also interesting that according to chief skeptics, the footage in Israel was fake because there had to have been a huge amount of witnesses that had to have seen something and come forward because the Dome of the Rock is a tourist attraction, and certainly there are a lot of people there at the time. Well, according to the Dome of the Rock website, the worst times to tour the area is during Shabbat, Muslim holidays, Fridays, or after 3 p.m. when the Dome of the Rock is closed. So let's see the footage of the UFO was taken at 1 a.m. on Friday during Shabbat. I am looking at my watch and I am trying to figure out if 1 a.m. is before or after 3 p.m. Isn't this skepticism impressive? If the UFO over Jerusalem is almost certainly a fake, then it was proven to be a hoax by the most persuasive morons on the planet. Watching the blitzkrieg of hoax and fake claims was exhausting because those who created their explanations for possible fraud would not allow rebuttal. This proved to me that there was an agenda to debunk this video for some reason. It also showed quite extensively the flaw in the ability for the neo-skeptic to review any and all evidence produced. They assumed outrageous claims and created ludicrous and dismissive opinions without even considering that their assumptions were false. What I do on my radio show is admittedly speculation based on stories of belief and faith. I challenge it always, listen and consider these beliefs because they are what fuel the decisions of leaders, governments, religions, and the people they influence. The UFO incidents in Utah and Israel should not be written off as fake because of dismissive speculation. There should be some consideration for belief that extends beyond that of Western interpretations of anomalous events. We in the United States believe that the entire world sees events such as these the same way. It is logical to assume that a light above a holy shrine may look like an extraterrestrial aircraft to the Western world, but to Muslim, Jew, or even a fundamentalist Christian, these events can be interpreted as fulfillment of some prophecy or even evidence of some biblical truth. These types of symbols and signs can be used by the elite to control the people, or at least point them in the direction of a future that they want to approximate and control. It does not matter of the debunker's attempt to debunk, it is the seed that is planted. The thought and idea has made an indelible mark on the unconscious mind. How it interprets it is based in belief and which archetypes we find ourselves embracing. No skeptic can change that. As philosopher Jean Baudrillard has illustrated in several of his books, the real will no longer have to be reproduced because the simulation will suffice. So let's assume, for the sake of fairness, that the skeptics are correct and the whole affair of the strange light above the Dome of the Rock was indeed a hoax. It will not matter at all because of what the holy shrine represents and what a light above it says to the unconscious. The Dome of the Rock is said to have been the location of Solomon's temple. The first temple was built there and was destroyed by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II during the siege of Jerusalem. It is also a place where Muhammad flew on the winged horse Buraq from Mecca to Jerusalem while accompanied by the archangel Gabriel. He landed on the Temple Mount. During the 12th century, it was a haven for the Knights Templar. Many have speculated that the Ark of the Covenant is buried there, that it is where Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, and the place where Jesus was judged by Pontius Pilate. What does a holy light say to a faithful Christian awaiting the second coming, or a Muslim who is awaiting the arrival of the Mahdi, a messianic return of a God who will rule from Jerusalem? These symbols and signs are important to them whether they are hoaxed or not. Yitzhak Hayutman is a cybernetics specialist that was featured in Wired magazine in 2004. He carried with him data that, when put into a computer, would be able to generate holographic imagery. He wanted to use the imagery to nudge the world into the apocalypse using the very same technology spoken of in the Project Bluebeam theory by Monast. Hayutman felt that he could summon the Messiah to arrive at the Dome of the Rock using lasers, a blimp, and some computer technology. He claims that he is able to project a large throne in the sky to simulate the throne of God. He also believes that this device can be used for peace. He believes his technology can engineer an apocalypse and unite the people for good. He chose the Dome of the Rock because it is a shrine dedicated to all three of the major monotheistic faiths. According to the Defense Technical Information Center, the United States military has a patent numbered ADA 33849 listed as a 3D holographic display that is used with strontium-barium neobate, a compound that is aerosolized. It is created by Army Research Laboratories as a new and innovative technique for generating a three-dimensional holographic displays that can be viewed in real time over a wide perspective or field of view. The holographic image is free from system-induced aberrations and has a uniform, high quality over the entire FOV. The enhanced image quality results from using a phase conjugate a red or blue beam generated from a second photorefractive crystal acting as a double-pumped phase conjugate mirror, DPPCM. Multiple three-dimensional images have been stored in the crystal via wavelength multiplexing. So we really don't need CGI to fake the whole religious experience or the alien experience. Anymore, we really don't have to produce all that much evidence to stir the crowds that believe or reject the idea of a miracle intervention. Using holograms and aerosolized clouds, we can produce the equivalent of the holy bat signal that everyone can see from Utah to Jerusalem. While Operation Bluebeam is supposed to be a universal hoax affecting all religions, it seems that most of the theories behind the very real technologies are based in Christian paranoia. All the other faiths probably don't know that the technologies exist. Serge Monast has said that the project will be used to falsify God's word. It won't matter whose word is falsified, the simulation will become the reality and will win in this strange paranormal game of rock, paper, scissors. As Jean Baudrillard had written in his book Simulacra and Simulation, the simulacrum is never that which conceals the truth. It is the truth which conceals that there is none. The simulacrum is true. For example, I have a cell phone that has an old-fashioned ring on it. There are no bells in the phone, just a recording of an old telephone ring. I respond to it the same way, and I don't even think or care that the bells ringing are not really bells and they are not really ringing. It is a simulation. If we look up in the sky and see God or some light in the sky that resonates as divine or unique, or if we see it as threat in the heat of the moment, are we going to stop and yell fake? I would assume that the answer is no. The internet has given a stage for people to sit in the comforts of their own homes and explain away everything to meet their own beliefs and keep them in their comfort zone. Mankind has been seeded with the idea that his culture and his religious philosophies come from enlightened beings from heaven. The fusing together of science and religion will give mankind a new way to look at the world. Man is set to begin the next step in his evolution, and this may be linked to a better understanding of what lies outside the confines of his own planet. There is, however, a great number of people who will attempt to begin the eschaton or the end times by using whatever means necessary to mold the world to their liking. I can only be fair and honest when I say that what happened in Israel and Utah can have a logical explanation outside the realms of divine or alien. I know full well that with new technology leaders, scientists of the world can stage or fake a supernatural messianic event. They are capable of convincing you of a godlike arrival from heaven. They can create an extraterrestrial landing, a UFO apocalypse, and plant a story to develop new religious movements. Brainwash scores of individuals in believing in worlds and places where these aliens live. They only need smoke and mirrors to make this happen, and an entire world will confess and bow before an image the controllers have created. However, there is the other side of the story. Perhaps to our own surprise, the faking of such events may just trigger the real thing. The new themes in science fiction create a viral philosophy that it is useless to resist central establishment control. It tends to posit a countercultural alternative to such control, which is actually a counterfeit, covertly emanating from the establishment itself. It is quite literally heroes creating villains to glorify themselves. Plots also plant thoughts that environmental catastrophe is as unavoidable as entropy, and that extinction will be our evolution, and that it is inevitable. Then, after all is said and done, the old gods will return to inhabit the planet, because it is our stellar scientific destiny. In 1978, Time magazine published a report that predicted that contemporary Protestant and Roman Catholic theologians, who have become accustomed to follow wherever science seems to be leading, speculate in turn in the new realm of exotheology, the theology of outer space, concerning what nature the extraterrestrial races might have. It can hardly be denied that the myth behind science fiction has a powerful fascination even among many learned men of our day. Furthermore, long before Time magazine analyzed predictive programming and religion, the respected psychoanalyst Carl Jung pointed out many years ago that we had lost the ability to believe in salvation through a deity. It would not be too far of a stretch to compare the UFO alien abduction phenomenon as a modern religious experience. Even if you don't believe that reports of UFO abduction are true, religious studies are now evolving, and within a generation, you will probably see the acceptance of an exotheological, environmentally friendly Christ, and an even more expanding exotheological religious movement that uses environmental concerns as the chief cornerstone of faith. This will include faith in the planet, faith in the universal whole, and faith in an exotheological dogma, which includes alien beings. After all of the exhausting buzz surrounding the UFO seen over the Dome of the Rock, a story was reported in the Jerusalem Post that sends the imagination into overdrive. It was reported that a 2-week-old baby was found abandoned at the holy shrine. The baby appeared to be in good health when police arrived upon the scene, and he has been put in the care of social services. Police have begun an investigation into the identity and whereabouts of the baby's parents. This, like many other stories, will disappear into history. However it is interpreted will be based on what beliefs that we individually embrace. Because like beauty, that which is paranormal is in the eyes of the beholder. The intricate tapestry woven from the threads of Watchmen, William Cooper, Project Bluebeam, and modern UFO phenomena leads to a profound and unsettling conclusion about the nature of reality, power, and belief in the 21st century. We are no longer in an era where the truth is simply hidden from us. We have entered a far more complex and disorienting phase where the very concepts of real and fake are being systematically dismantled and weaponized. The ultimate conspiracy may not be a specific event like a faked alien invasion, but rather a perpetual state of cognitive dissonance, a manufactured battlefield where skepticism and belief are both tools of control, and where the population is so overwhelmed by disinformation and simulated realities that it becomes incapable of discerning any truth, let then mounting a coherent resistance to power. The prophetic warnings of figures like William Cooper and Serge, Monast, however fringe or flawed their specifics may be, correctly identified a core strategy of the modern security state: the use of perceived external threats to consolidate global power. The Watchmen scenario, echoed by Reagan and Gorbachev, is not merely a fictional plot, but a lucid articulation of a realpolitik doctrine. The goal is the engineering of consensus through fear, a new world order born not from conquest, but from a universally accepted surrender to a protective authority in the face of an existential danger. Whether this threat is presented as terrorists, asteroids, or extraterrestrials is almost irrelevant. The psychological outcome is the same. The public willingly cedes liberties and sovereignty for the promise of security. Project Bluebeam represents the technological and spiritual evolution of this strategy. It is not just about faking an event, but about hijacking the deepest wells of human meaning: faith, awe, and the longing for the divine. The potential to use advanced holographic and acoustic technology to stage a second coming or an alien arrival over a site as religiously charged as the Dome of the Rock is the ultimate psychological operation. It seeks to short-circuit rational thought and appeal directly to the archetypal subconscious, triggering pre-programmed religious and apocalyptic responses. In this light, the rush to debunk events like the Utah and Jerusalem UFO sightings is not just an academic exercise, it is a critical defense of reality itself. However, as the analysis shows, the neo-skeptic movement often fails in this duty. By employing lazy logic, dismissive ridicule, and a refusal to engage with anomalous patterns across multiple events, they do not defend truth, but rather enforce a sterile, consensus reality that is just as manufactured as the hoaxes they seek to expose. Their role is not to investigate, but to gatekeep, ensuring that any phenomenon outside the accepted paradigm is immediately labeled fake and discarded, thus preventing the public from connecting dots that might reveal a larger, more disturbing picture. This creates a perfect epistemic storm. On one side, a powerful apparatus with the motive and technological capability to simulate reality. On the other, a cadre of skeptics who, wittingly or not, serve to discredit any genuine anomaly that might slip through the net. The result is a populace trapped in the middle, unable to trust official narratives, yet equally unable to trust alternative investigators. We are left in a state of what philosopher Jean Baudrillard called the hyperreal, where the simulation, the fake UFO video, the staged event, the manufactured controversy, is not a lie hiding the truth, but becomes a truth in its own right, with real-world consequences. It doesn't matter if the light over Jerusalem was a hologram or a genuine unknown phenomenon. What matters is the meaning people assign to it. A believer will see a messianic sign, a Muslim will see the Mahdi, a secularist will see an alien visitor. The symbol, once unleashed, takes on a life of its own, and its interpretation can be guided and manipulated to shape mass behavior. Therefore, the final chilling conclusion is that we are being conditioned for a post-truth eschaton, the fusion of science fiction, religious prophecy, and advanced technology, as seen in the work of Yitzhak Hayutman and documented in military patents, demonstrates that the tools for a global-scale simulacrum are not science fiction, they are science fact. The real Project Bluebeam may not be a single scheduled event, but a gradual, ongoing process of desensitization and symbolic priming. We are being prepared to accept a new, unified narrative for humanity, one that will likely blend exotheology, the theology of outer space, with environmental alarmism to present a vision of a threatened planet that must unite under a single technocratic governance to survive. In this coming world, the question will not be, are the aliens real, but whose reality will you accept? The controllers of the simulation will offer a reality of managed fear and techno-salvation. The danger is that in our desperation for meaning and security in a chaotic world, we will willingly embrace the spectacle, bowing before a holographic god or uniting against a projected enemy. The true battle, then, is not for evidence of UFOs, but for the sovereignty of the human mind and spirit. It is a battle to retain our capacity for genuine wonder, critical thought, and spiritual autonomy in the face of an unprecedented campaign to replace authentic experience with a perfectly engineered simulation. The ultimate disclosure may not be that we are not alone in the universe, but that we are no longer alone in our own minds, and that the heavens above are now just another screen for the projection of power. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. I love hearing from you. Check out more videos on the screen, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.